Hey there, Slayers. Are you feeling like you are struggling with a narcissist who is just getting you down, pushing you down at every turn? They're lying to you, they're lying to everybody else, smearing your name. I've been exactly where you are. You're looking for a way to put that narcissist in their place so that you can finally get on the offensive instead of constantly being on the defensive. I got 8 ways to put a narcissist in their place. Pull up a chair, get your pen and pad ready, because I'm gonna help you do that. By the end of this video, you're gonna have 8 ways to put a narcissist in their place. Let's go. We're diving deep. Number 1 is set boundaries. You want to make sure you set boundaries. I always say step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. It's part of my overall slay strategy. I've been helping people break free from narcissists for more than 20 years as a lawyer, as a globally recognized narcissist negotiation expert, as somebody who has a high conflict negotiation strategy program, a training program. I certify people in this. So I'm telling you right now that the very first thing that you need to do is set clear boundaries and hold people to them. And I know it's so hard. So if the very first baby step that you take is put that invisible boundary down around you, as if it's like Teflon, the thing that narcissists look for are those little holes, those little places that they can get in, places that they think that there's an opening. And if the very first thing that you do is start looking at them as if they are a toddler having a tantrum on the floor, then you can start to observe their behavior to them. What do? You say, I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are angry. I can see that we might need to continue this conversation at a time that you have calmed down. Speak calmly, speak clearly. Never raise your voice. In fact, the lower you go, the quieter you go, the more control that you have. The minute you lose control, the minute your voice goes up, the minute your tone goes up, they know that they have you. Keep your breath low. Even take a breath if you need to, because the more that you do that, the more difficult they become, because then they start losing it. They start getting more emotional. They start losing control. And then they start yelling. And if you start yelling back, then they know that they have you, that now you're sucked in, pulled in, drawn in, you're in that mud. And now they feel like they've got a conversation going. Now they feel that they've got like a partner in this. It's like somebody is pushing back. So if you set that boundary, if you've got that invisible shield down around you, then there's nothing that they can pull, that there's nothing that they can push. It's like Teflon. It's like water off that duck's back. All right. So you can say, I'm not going to tolerate being spoken to disrespectfully, and if they yell at you, if they say things like you're this, you're that, whatever, you can just say, okay, thank you for the feedback. I'll take that under consideration, whatever. But you can say, I need to have my personal space respected. I'm not going to have this conversation right now. I'm not available for arguments. I'm not available for debates. Establishing that is critical. And it doesn't matter if this person is your boss. It doesn't matter if this person is your mother, father, whoever it is, you're always entitled to respect. It's really powerful. It's really important. It's really critical. What's okay and what's not? What are you going to tolerate? You tell people how you are going to be treated. You tell people. So that's number 1. Number 2 is limiting that emotional engagement. I always say boundaries and then brief, like my B's, right? Limiting emotional engagement. It's that gray rock. People talk about gray rock. It's like you being a gray rock. It's so boring to even look at, but it's also, not having that much interaction with them. Try to keep it as brief as possible and just being neutral. So one of the things that I constantly tell people is making a plan, Stan. So when you're going to go have a conversation with them, just have a scope, an agenda, and a time limit when you're going to go talk to them. So you're going to only going to go talk to them about one issue, for a brief period of time. And if they go beyond that, then make sure they know about it ahead of time. But if you're going to go beyond that, you just say, I'm sorry, but this is the only thing we're going to be talking about today, and you know that. And I'm not going to talk about anything else. And if they go beyond the time limit, you can just say, oh, I'm sorry that gotta go, gotta go. Have something else today. I love talking to you. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing ever. But unfortunately, gotta run. But we can set another time, and then you go on. You are protecting your peace. You are keeping your Teflon up. You're like Superman with the bullets off your chest. You are like Wonder Woman with the bullets off of your wrist. You are observing, you're not absorbing. Observe, don't absorb. All right? Protecting your well-being, preventing any kind of toxicity. No icky people under the tent. Next one is assertive communication. So important to have assertive communication when it comes to narcissists. There's a difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. Obviously, you're not going to be aggressive, but you can use I statements. I need this. It is important that I have this. You can't say you with narcissists. You can't say you're this or you're that, whatever. You can say, this is what I expect. These are my expectations. This is what I need. And be very clear. Be very clear about your boundaries and what you want for yourself. And be calm, be composed. If they get upset, if they get angry, if they're having a breakdown, if they're having a meltdown, if they're having a tantrum, they're in a rage. Okay, there you go. You do that. You do you. But you're over here watching them. You stay cool, calm, collected. You are the adult in the relationship. Number 4 is what I call avoiding jade. I always wear jade because I'm half Chinese, love jade, but I always say you don't want to have jade. What does that mean? Is you're never going to justify, argue, defend, or explain. Why? Because have you ever seen a narcissist after you've said, this is my position? This is what I think that you should be seeing about my side. I've done this for you and I've done that for you, or this is what I think you should acknowledge. Da, da, da. Have you ever seen a narcissist say, you know what? I've thought about that. And you are so right. I get your side now. I get it. They've never done that ever. Not once in the history of all narcissists of all time. They've never come over to the other person's position. Not unless they're manipulating you, because, everything is a manipulation when it comes to narcissists. So you need to just never justify, argue, defend, or explain, never jade. And you just go back to your gray rock. You just go back to, oh, okay. You can even say things like, I agree with you. I agree with you that we're never going to agree. I agree with you that that's your opinion. When you say things like that, you're not actually agreeing to anything, but they hear, I agree with you. Number 5 is utilize consequences. There has to be consequences for each and every action. It's like the law of physics. It has to happen when it comes to narcissists. For each and every action, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction. What do I mean by that? It means every time that they do something, you gotta respond. That means that if they didn't provide discovery in a case, you've got to file a motion. You've got to do something. If they didn't do what they were supposed to do with a court order, you got to file a motion to compel. You got to file a motion for contempt. There's got to be something. There has to be something. Or if they didn't do something at work, there has to be consequences. Or if they didn't do something at home, if they didn't fulfill on a promise, there has to be consequences. You have to not say, okay, they didn't fulfill on a promise and then let them go, because that's how they continue to get away with what they get away with, because people don't have good boundaries, because people have leaky boundaries when it comes to them. And if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing so far, I want you to put agree in the chat. And I want to know what you're thinking so far. I want to know how you're feeling about any of this so far. Which one of these are you going to use so far? Which one of these is resonating with you so far? Believe me, I'm telling you this from a person who has been there. I've dealt with narcissists in my life, and I know I'm telling you this from very personal experience, all right? As a lawyer and in my personal life. Why do I also know this? Because the next thing I got to tell you is you've got to practice some self care. You've got to practice some self care. And if you don't practice self care, it's going to literally kill you anyway. But it is also a way to put a narcissist in their place, because narcissists don't want you to be practicing self-care. The only care that they want you to be practicing is on them. They want all the attention to be going toward them. They don't want you to be putting your care toward anybody else but them. And they believe that care is something to be doled out, and that all of it should be heading their direction and in nobody else's direction. And that's why they go crazy on holidays or birthdays or anything else, because they want all the attention to be focused on them and nobody else. But you need to be setting aside time for relaxation, for holidays, for therapy if need be, for counseling if need be, for coaching if need be, for support for yourself, time with friends, for whatever it is that floats your boat, right? And that will help you to get over the brain fog and all that other stuff that I'm sure is taking its emotional toll on you right now. Join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Get my book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. Get my free phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com. Do what you need to do to help yourself in this situation, because you need to take care of yourself. And the next one is also a way to put their narcissist in their places: seeking support. Do they want you to seek support? Hell to the no. They want you to be supporting them. But get help from trusted individuals, get help from support systems, from therapy. You need to educate yourself about narcissistic behavior and seek support and get information so that you can not have the feelings of isolation and helplessness. All right. And number 8 is maintain perspective and leave if you need to. And that is a really huge way to put a narcissist in their place and also expose them. Through my Slay strategy, I teach you how to create strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. And that's the whole thing that I teach you in that Slay strategy: how to truly break free, how to truly, I've helped literally thousands of people all over the world through my global programs, through my high conflict certification program, to teach people how to negotiate, how to deal with the drama, trauma, and chaos, how to coach people through the drama, trauma, and chaos, whether you're a professional, whether you are a person who wants to actually coach, or whether you just want to up level your game and become the authority on it. But whether you want to focus on your personal growth, personal development, cultivate gratitude, cultivate resilience, negotiate and break free, teach other people how to negotiate and break free. It is important for yourself, for your health, for your well-being, your emotional health, and help other individuals navigate high conflict with clarity, with grace. That's the way to do it, and have it become your mission, have it become your purpose. That's the way to do it. All of this are ways that you can put narcissists in their place and really become a spiritual warrior about this. 8 transformative strategies to put narcissists in their place and reclaim your power. I want you to stop explaining this to narcissists and do this instead. Have you ever found yourself trapped in this exhausting cycle of trying to explain yourself to a narcissist only to feel super frustrated, like you are not being heard, right? Like they're not hearing you. And you just feel like you're beating your head against a wall, and actually finding it bloody would be an easier way of walking around in your life. I know what it's like. I know the struggle. I know the pain, because I've actually been there, not just as an attorney, but also in my personal life, really as a high conflict communications expert. I've helped and trained people, thousands of them all over the world. And I want to share with you this really powerful alternative. And that over the next few minutes, I'm going to help shift your world, rock your world, so that you will walk away with this unbelievable, empowering way to totally shift the interactions that you have with narcissists. All right. Before we dive in, make sure you've subscribed here. Make sure you turn on those notifications so that you can always get content like this. All right. Make sure you comment below with your experiences in dealing with narcissists. I love hearing from my community and engaging in conversations with all of you. And make sure that you also get my exclusive Disarm the Narc phrases. It's a whole guide filled with powerful scripts for you to disarm those narcissists in your life. All right. So now let's get into it. So when we find ourselves entangled with high conflict personalities or narcissists, we fall into this trap of like over explaining ourselves, hoping that in some way we're going to get into them, hoping that in some way we can articulate something that they're going to go, oh, okay, I get it now. But the problem is that they purposely misunderstand us. They purposely act like they're confused. They purposely say, oh, I don't get it, or why are you bringing this up now, or this isn't a good time, or they purposely interrupt, or whatever it is. They don't want to hear. They thrive on control. They thrive on manipulation. They thrive on allowing you to get to the point. So no amount of explaining is ever going to change that. So instead of wasting your precious time, instead of wasting your precious energy, because that's all just going to continue to fall on deaf ears, what you want to do is reclaim your power, reclaim your control, and shift your approach. That's where my transformative strategy is going to come into play. So the key is to focus on setting firm boundaries and communicating your needs assertively without getting entangled in lengthy explanations. So imagine you're in a meeting with a particularly difficult personality, a particularly difficult colleague, somebody at work who just constantly undermines your ideas. Okay. In the past, you have felt really compelled to over explain, over justify your proposals. Like, no, it really is a good idea. No, really, let me show you why, hoping that you can gain their approval. But from now on, what I want you to do instead of that, instead of like almost like coming from this place of like being defensive, instead of getting caught up in this back and forth sort of explanation, just simply state and very confidently put forth, like, this is why it's good. Here are the points. And you just basically lay it out. And the way that you present it, there's no gaps, there's no loopholes, there's no vulnerabilities, there's no place for them. It's almost like the more you talk, the more you explain, the weaker you sound. You want to just go, this is it. This is the thing. And then when they try to give their feedback, when they try to give their thoughts, that's when you say, okay, I get it. I appreciate your feedback. This is not open for discussion today. You take back control of the conversation. Thank you for your perspective. You sort of just don't allow for the opening anymore. You protect your energy, you protect your peace. You just have that invisible boundary down around you, so that you are stating it confidently, assuredly, with boundaries. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate your approach. You set clear boundaries. You refuse to engage in fruitless explanations. You protect your peace. You protect your energy. You protect your self worth. You're gracious. You're kind. You're never rude. You don't lose control. You can smile. Thank you. I appreciate that. You don't owe anyone, I always say never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain. You don't owe anyone exhaustive explanation for simply being yourself. Those are the ways that you can not explain. I can remember one time that when I was in court and I was teaching one of my associates how to get something introduced into evidence. He was trying so hard to argue the point to the judge. He was like, well, and now I'd like to introduce this into evidence. I could just tell the way he said it, the judge was going to go, denied. But had he gone, and here are the points, and this is why, and here it is, it would have been accepted. Because he said it the way that he said it, it was denied. So if you take back control, you set clear boundaries, you know the value of what it is. You say less in a lot of ways, and you're not explaining, and defending, and all right, and getting into it. You know who you are, and those gaps are closed, and you respect yourself. You end up so much further ahead of the game. Know your facts, know your supporting documentation, and then be calm. I always say never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Never jade. I always say I love jade, but never jade. You stand comfortably on who you are. One secret tactic that is guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is narcissistic fluffing. And I know this seems so crazy, but it's bartering to get what you want. I call it fluff for favor, vomit later. So what you do is you ethically manipulate the manipulator. You go up to them and you say, hey, can you do the QuickBooks? You are so much better at it than I am. And so then you get something that you want. They do it. And then, if you need to go vomit or shower later, that's fine. But you got something that you wanted, and it puts them in their place. You got something that you wanted, and they're none the wiser, right? So it's a little secret tactic that's guaranteed to put them in their place. You take your ego out of it. Fluff or favor, vomit later. So that's one secret tactic that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place. Another secret tactic to put a narcissist in their place, it's a great way to gather leverage against them, is to keep them talking. They have no idea what you're doing. They love to talk about themselves. They love to tell you all about what's going on. And then you will figure out what's actually motivating them. Remember that what really motivates a narcissist is how they look to the world. What I call diamond level supply, that supply that feeds them, that motivates them, is their ego. So it could be that new girlfriend or that the employees that they work with, whoever it is that makes them, that beefs up their ego the most in the world. It could be those A-level people that are around them, right? Whoever it is that's motivating, that's driving them, keep them talking, because they will tell you what's motivating them. They cannot help themselves. And that will help you in the long run. Okay? Keep them talking, find out what's motivating them. That will help you. That will help you put them in their place. Next, the next secret tactic to guarantee to put them in their place is get them to respond to you in writing as much as possible. They always lie, they always contradict themselves, and then that becomes fantastic leverage for you. If you keep track of all of that, then you will be able to put it all together and use that against them as leverage. They will never believe that you actually took the time to put all of that together. Now, remember to use one form of writing as much as possible with them, because if you use text or if you use all these different forms of email or all these different forms of other types of writing, they will use all these different ways to make your life miserable. They're DMing you in your Instagram, in all these different forms, and it drives you absolutely crazy. And on top of that, if you end up having to go to trial with them, you're trying to remember, where was that? Where did that come in? Did that come in through my Facebook messaging? Did that come in through my Instagram messaging? Where did that come in from? And you don't want to have to deal with all of that. And you don't want to have to try to remember that. So you want to try to keep your writing in one form as much as possible. And you really should have it be email if possible. Really should be email if possible, because if it's email, then you have a time and date stamp. It's something that's provable, and it's the least likely to be manipulated down the road. When it becomes a trial exhibit, they're much more difficult to be entered into as evidence, because when you go to use them as trial exhibits, they want the entire conversation usually. And so texts are not usually great for trial exhibits. You usually need to have an entire conversation. And that's why email serves as a better form of writing. And I really do recommend that when you're talking to narcissists, because they will lie. They literally will say something and then completely contradict themselves in just one conversation later. They will say, I don't want to have to be in this job anymore, or whatever they say. And then 10 minutes later, they'll say, I never said that, as if you are dealing with an insane person. So, as much as possible, you want to have them be in conversation with you in writing. And a lot of this, by the way, is in my Slay program. But one of the ways that you can really start to gather all of this is by using my Crush My Negotiation Prep Worksheet. It's a 15-page ebook, which you can definitely get at winmynegotiation.com and get that free ebook and get started with that. If you know, it's everything all in one place. So go get that to get started. Okay, so number 4 is call them out when things aren't adding up. When they literally just say, I didn't say that, you can just say, but you did. You can actually, you have the right during conversations to say, I can see that you are saying things to me that aren't truthful, or we can resume this conversation when you're ready to have a conversation with me that is truthful, or something like that. I mean, call them out when things aren't adding up. But you know, you do need to be careful, because if you are dealing with somebody who is volatile, then you don't want to put yourself in any kind of harm's way. You know, you certainly don't want to do that. Other thing I do want to caution you on with this particular one is that if you are going back to number 3, where you are catching them in lies in their writings and things like that, you don't want to let on that you know what you have. All right. So be careful about that. The next one is act like you don't care. That is guaranteed to put them in their place, because if you don't care, then it just absolutely drives them bonkers. They just can't stand it when you don't care what's going on. Nothing drives a narcissist crazy like your complacency, like your apathy. That's the one thing they want more than anything, is your rise, you to be engaged with them. But if it's sort of like a pushback thing where you're not pushing back, then they don't have anything giving them that supply. If you see the truth in what I'm saying so far, put truth in the comments below, because you know that what I'm saying is the truth. The next secret that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is stop defending yourself. When you defend yourself, you are literally saying to them that there is something there. You're giving credence to their arguments. And you definitely don't want to do that. Never explain, never justify, never overshare, never defend yourself. You can stand in your power. When things are filed, motions are filed, when letters come over, I know that that's your first inclination, is to go, oh my gosh, you want to defend yourself on everything, point by point by point. I know I do too, but do not defend yourself. That's number 6. Another secret tactic that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is to stand your ground when they try to move goalposts. Certainly don't negotiate against yourself. I've seen people do this all the time. Well, they haven't responded. Let me go back and maybe reduce or something. No, stand your ground, especially when they try to move goalposts. You stay firm. Do not allow them to do that. When they move those goalposts around, they are jerking you around and they're getting supply from that, and don't allow them to do that. They're doing that because they want to see that rise from you. Don't allow that. Let it go. The next thing is to create strategy before making your moves. It is so common when you're dealing with a narcissist to feel you're constantly in survival mode, and you just are swinging all the time, and you feel like you're just putting out fires constantly, and you don't have time to sit back and create a vision and to create an action plan. But you need to create that strategy before you make your moves, and then you will be standing in power, and you will actually get to the goal of where you want to go. It will be so much more powerful for you. The next thing is to create invincible leverage. Going back to what I said in number 3, which is where I started to create the foundation for this, is to create an almost like an invisible fence around that narcissist. Once that fence becomes visible, it's almost like turning on the light, and they realize, oh my goodness, I'm cornered. It'll be so much more powerful for you. I'm setting you up for the SLAY methodology here. You see that? Strategy, leverage, anticipating where they're going, being 2 steps ahead of them. And then finally, number 10 is focusing on you being on the offensive, your incredible 100% super powerful mindset. You have to believe that you can win before anybody else can help you. But if you don't believe that you can win, nobody can help you. You have to believe it. And then that's the most powerful secret tactic that's guaranteed to make sure that you are going to be the most powerful person in whatever room that you stand up in. Because let me tell you, there are always going to be narcissists in this world. They will always be toxic no matter where you go. But if you focus on you, your powerful mindset, and how strong you are. That's kryptonite to narcissists, right? I know dealing with narcissistic individuals can be draining, can be exhausting, can make you feel used, can make you feel abused, can make you feel like you are powerless, paranoid. I've been there. I know, not just representing them as an attorney and seeing what it's like in that situation, but also I've dealt with them in my personal life. And that's why I'm on this mission, this crusade to get you armed with exactly what you need. So I want you to have these kick ass comebacks. I want you to have them so that you have these resources, these toolkit, this arsenal, right? So that you have these strategies so that you'll be better equipped to deal with them and have them at the ready so that you can handle their manipulative behavior when it comes, thrown at you. All right. So the first one is responding with empathy. All right. So what's like you just say, what's your motivation for doing that? When you're dealing with a narcissist, ask them about what's their motivation for doing that. Instead of coming at them with anger, you just kind of make them pause. It's almost like stunning them for a second. What is your motivation for doing that? And you kind of almost get them to reflect on their actions for a second. They're not going to be having empathy for you. So never think that you're going to get them to have like acknowledge your actions, see your side, have closure, all any of those things. But by prompting them to consider why they're behaving in a certain way, you get them to challenge them to think beyond their own self-centered mindset just for a quick second. Wait a minute. What is that? Okay. So that's number one, responding with empathy. The second one is it seems like you're trying to make a point. You're saying something like, what is it you're trying to do? What is it you're trying to do? Again, when you kind of come at them almost like with a naive bewilderment, like, what is it you're doing? You're almost like feigning confusion in a way instead of, coming at them with this anger and meeting them with anger. You almost sort of come at them with, what are you doing? And it seems like you're trying to make a point. And again, it sort of calls out their attempt to manipulate the conversation for their own benefit. You're sort of observing their tactics, and again, it almost sort of pushes it out to the sunlight and makes it transparent. The next one is again sort of an empathetic approach where you say, would it be helpful if I stopped? Would it be helpful if I listened? A lot of times I just find myself where I just stop and I just look at them. They just want to keep going. And so offering to just stop, offering to just listen, let them go. You value them, you value their perspective. A lot of times, honestly, they dig themselves into a hole and they give you leverage. They tell you what they're thinking. They say things that are nonsensical. And, it stops them from constantly controlling everything. They think that they're giving constructive dialogue, and it just fosters better communication that way because it takes you out of this feeling of frustration and it puts you into this almost observer mode. The next one is like a seeking clarity, where you're saying, can you explain what you were thinking when you said that? Can you explain what you were thinking when you did that? Either when you said that or when you did that. Can you explain what you were thinking when you said that? Or can you explain what you were thinking when you did that? You're making them explain their thought process. You're confronting them about potential consequences of their words. You're confronting them about potential consequences of their actions. Kind of almost makes them think about their impact of their behavior, and it promotes self-reflection. The next one is where you again observe their behavior. You seem angry. You appear to be upset. You sound frustrated. You look worried. I love approaches where you almost are like reporting the news. You don't actually have to hold the microphone, but you can just sort of almost think of them as like a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. You wouldn't get down on the floor and have a tantrum with the toddler, right? You would just look at the toddler and you'd be like, okay, are you done yet? And that's sort of what you have to do with them. So you're addressing their emotions, you're redirecting the focus of the conversation. In some ways, you kind of end up getting more clarity. Are you worried about something? Are you angry about something? And you can encourage them to explore their concerns more constructively, even sometimes. Sometimes they'll be like, you goddamn right, I'm angry, whatever, but whatever. I mean, you don't have to be at the mercy of their wrath. Because I always say step one, don't run. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free, because you're kind of course correcting. You're stopping that conditioning from the narcissist. People say, just leave, whatever. But sometimes that's like too much to think about all at once, to just leave, get out of it, so you have to think of it in baby steps. So that first step sometimes is just, a boundary. And that first boundary can just be, I'm going to just not allow somebody to speak to me in a disrespectful manner. The next one is challenging their behavior, so where you just say, how do you feel when somebody doesn't agree with your opinion? Because a lot of times, they're not agreeing with your opinion. You're trying to get them to reflect on their need for validation and control, but you're really seeing like, hey, listen, you're doing the same thing here, right? So highlighting their emotional response and differing opinions, you encourage them to consider alternative viewpoints and open up to a balanced conversation. Now, they're probably not going to do that, but you're sort of seeing what's happening there. And by the way, I have a whole video with regard to kick-ass comebacks to narcissistic texts, by the way, too. And the one thing you really want to do is not engage too much, with all of this, because they're trying to pull you in. They're trying to bait you a lot of times. So what I'm trying to get you to do is sort of stay above the fray with this. Don't get too deep into the woods. Don't get too deep into the mud with this, right? Because they're trying to get you baited. They're trying to get you hooked in. And once you get hooked in, then you're down in it with them. If they pull you in, just don't do that. Stay where you're sort of looking at them. You don't explain, you don't justify, you don't defend yourself, right? You look at them. The next one, number 7, is it sounds like what you're asking is. You're sort of almost like mirroring. You're almost sort of like summarizing. It sounds like to me what you're asking is, and then just sort of summarize. So by pointing out this, it sounds like what you want is validation from me. You're pointing out their insecurities a lot of times. They want all this validation. They want to control the conversation. I hate when you expose that in them. And by the way, I have a whole free sheet with all of a bunch of phrases that you can get, and it's at disarmthenarc.com. It's phrases for disarming narcissists, which will be all summarized for you. Then you can use them for whatever you want. So disarmthenarc.com, go grab those. The next thing is, are you trying to control the conversation? Again, you're like highlighting it. Sounds like you're trying to control the conversation. It directly says, look what you're doing. You're manipulating me. I see what you're doing. It calls them out, and you're challenging them to be more respectful. You're challenging them to be in a balanced conversation. This is so difficult. Okay. All of this is so difficult. If you don't have support, you need support. I have a free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Join my free private Facebook group and get help, get support. If you don't have access to therapy, I have a sponsor in this channel, which you can access through betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. Get the help and support that you need. It's a sponsor for us, so we receive commissions. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to trustworthy sources. Number 9 is encouraging constructive dialogue. So Why are you so defensive about this? They're always defensive, but then, they accuse you of things like that, right? Again, you're like highlighting their behavior, showing them what it is that they're doing. It's encouraging them to see that they're being insecure and hopefully opening up more constructive dialogue. And if it's not, then that's fine. You can say, listen, this approach is not working for me. We can have a conversation about this when you can be more constructive. You can always walk away. And then the last one is, how does this conversation help us both? Again, encouraging constructive dialogue by emphasizing the mutual benefit of constructive dialogue. Where are we going with this? What's the bigger picture? What is the potential outcome for both of our benefit? You want to promote a cooperative and collaborative approach to communication. They'll say that that's what they want, but of course it's not. We've discussed 10 kick-ass comebacks to shut down narcissists so that you can also take back your own power. And that's really the more important thing here, right? You want to stand up to that manipulative behavior. You want to reclaim your voice in this. And by utilizing these empowering comebacks, you can create those boundaries and start taking back your own voice in this thing. Foster healthier communication, maintain your self-worth. Don't let anyone dim your light anymore or undermine your value. Stay strong, stay confident. You have value. They didn't attach themselves to you because you have so little value. They attach themselves and stay attached to you because you have so much. Don't you dare ever forget that. I want you to put that in the comments right now. I have value. I have value. I want you to put that there because I don't want you to forget it. I'm going to give you 10 tactics to put a narcissist in their place. So make sure you watch till the end so that you can get all 10. Okay. So number 1 is don't react to their bait. I know, super hard, because believe me, not only have I had to see how it is to deal with narcissists in my law practice, but I've had to deal with them in my life as well. And it's really, really hard because they give you plenty of bait. They are constantly trying to trigger you. That's their MO. Why? Why do they do that? Because they get narcissistic supply from that. Yeah, they actually get off on that. They enjoy watching you squirm. They enjoy intimidating you. That's part of their coal level supply. I call it coal level supply. The diamond level supply, what feeds their ego, is how they look to the world. But like their underbelly, that dark underbelly of supply, the supply that also feeds their ego that they don't love to tell the world about. They would never tell the world that this is something they enjoy, but they do enjoy devaluing, debasing, and degrading people, controlling people. So don't react to their bait, because when you do, it also potentially gives them something to use that they can use against you. So be careful about that. Okay, so don't react to their bait. Number 2, you can do something that I call bartering. Okay. So you fluff up their ego a little bit to get something that you want. You give something to get something. So it looks like this. Hey, can you do the QuickBooks today? You're so much better at math than I am. So you get them to do something so that, you get something out of it, they get something out of it. What do they get out of it? They get that adulation, which is something they love and desperately need. Narcissistic fluffing and bartering. That's number 2. Number 3 is you keep them talking. Keep them talking. They love to talk about themselves. And then that tells you what's motivating them. Super important, especially when you are negotiating with them and you are using my SLAY methodology, of course, my SLAY framework: strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you. You are slaying your negotiation. So when you are anticipating and you're creating that strategy and you're creating that leverage, you need to figure out what's motivating them. So keep them talking to find out what's motivating them. That's number 3. Number 4, get them to respond to you in writing as much as possible. They always lie and contradict themselves. They can't help themselves. That's what they do. That's how they are in the world. That's just their way of being. Those lies and contradictions turn into fantastic pieces of leverage. So, when you respond, though, be very careful, because remember, everything that you do turns into a potential exhibit as well. And remember, they're always trying to bait you. So be careful about that. And I do have an entire video on how to respond to narcissistic text messages. Definitely check that out. Really good video. Okay, number 5, call them out when things aren't adding up. Now, be very careful about this, especially if you're dealing with somebody who may be dangerous. Always have to give that caveat. But if things aren't adding up, call them out. Say, hey, how come you're here at this picnic today? Thought you said you were sick yesterday, something like that. Okay, that's number 5. Number 6, just act like you don't care. Remember, that gives them narcissistic supply. So if they're showing up places just to annoy you or doing things just to bother you, don't notice it. You know that they're doing things to try to trigger you. Don't notice it. Act like you don't care. All right. I know it's hard. So just breathe. I want you to write that in the comments right now. Just breathe. And then I want you to breathe. Okay. Take a breath. Just breathe. You can do this. I've helped thousands of people do this, and you can do this too. You can win. So just breathe. Write that in the comments right now. Just breathe. All right. Number 7, stand your ground when they try to move goalposts. Don't allow them to do that. They have conditioned you. You are conditioning them right back now. You're changing the dynamic here. They have conditioned you to believing certain things and acting in certain ways and being in a certain way in your relationship with them. So they think that you're going to be a certain way when they act a certain way. And you are changing it now. No longer are you retreating. And in fact, you're now standing your ground. And in fact, you're actually going to start marching toward. And they're not going to like it. That's okay. You're going to stand your ground and it's going to be okay. I promise you. In fact, it's going to be better than okay. That's number 7. Number 8, create strategy before making your moves. Please don't just act willy-nilly. You need strategy. Number 9, you need leverage. Create invincible leverage. You've got to have leverage. It's the only way. You've got to figure out a way to create leverage that's actually going to motivate and squeeze them, that's going to threaten a source of narcissistic supply, that's going to be more important for them to protect, defend, and maintain than the supply that they get from jerking you around. Super important. And number 10, focus on you, your case, your position. Slay. You're slaying this. You are putting these 10 tactics into place, and these will put a narcissist in their place. It works every single time. All right. So 5 tactics to put a narcissist in their place. All right. So number 1 tactic to put a narcissist in their place is create boundaries. This is sometimes the hardest thing to start with because they hate this, and it's so hard for you because this is the very first thing that they make sure that you don't have. They come in, they take over. It's like they rock your world and the stars have aligned. And it's almost like this gas that's come in and permeated every cell of your body and in your nose and in your eyes and in your breath and in your lungs. And When they come in, they come in. That's what that whole love bombing process is. They're blowing up your phone, they're blowing up your email, and they have to meet everybody in your world. And this is business or personal, by the way. And it's why wait? And let's get to the next level as soon as possible. And if it's romantic, it's, moving in, and it's meeting the family, and it's get married, and the whole thing. And even if it's business, it's let's be business partners and let's sign contracts, whatever that next step is. It's as quick as possible. So it's no boundaries, right? And if it's family, it's the same thing. No boundaries. My husband and I have a narcissist in our family, and we've had to create really strict boundaries, and it's hard. This is the hardest part, because they don't want it. They want you to have boundaries. They're super secretive, and they don't want you looking at their phone, and they don't want to tell you things, and they don't want you touching their stuff, but they definitely don't want you to create boundaries. So this is the hardest thing. But if you can create boundaries, and you can draw those lines, and then keep those boundaries in place, that is the best place to start. As far as putting a narcissist in their place, start with some boundaries. Even if they're small, just stop walking backward. Stop retreating, start walking forward a little bit. Stop retreating, start walking forward. Keep those boundaries in place. Can't speak to me that way. I will have a conversation with you when you are calm. That's a boundary. I will not be spoken to in a disrespectful manner. That's a boundary. We'll have a conversation later. That in and of itself is a boundary. So create boundaries. That's number one. Number two, call them out when things aren't adding up. I was so guilty of this when I was dealing with a narcissistic business partner. I would not call out my narcissistic business partner a lot of times when things weren't adding up. I would see things happening, and I'd be like, do I really want to have this conversation? It's uncomfortable. Does it really matter that much? I mean, these are the kinds of things I would say to myself. Is it worth the conversation that I'm going to have? Is there a way around it? Maybe I should just take care of it myself. It's easier to just deal with it. Like, these are the things that I would end up doing. That's not the best way to handle these things a lot of times. Call them out when things aren't adding up. So that's number two. Number three, stop defending yourself. Don't defend yourself when they attack you. And I have a whole video on that. Stop defending yourself. So that's number three tactic to put a narcissist in their place. Number four, stand your ground when they try to move goalposts, especially in negotiations, and they move goalposts all the time. I have a whole video on why narcissists move goalposts. It's all about their narcissistic supply and all of that. You don't want to deal with that, but they do enjoy the process of making you squirm and manipulating you and all of that. But definitely check out my video on this topic, and just put in the comments right now, I am strong because you are. You can get past this. You are stronger than this. You're so much stronger than you think you are. You really are. You're so much stronger than you think you are. And you're so much smarter than you think you are, by the way. That's number four. And by the way, if you need extra help and support, go to betterhelp.com. Get the help and support that you need. I have a partnership with betterhelp.com, and you can get help and support from them if you don't have another place to get help. They provide online therapy, and they are fantastic. We do get commissions from them, but we do offer that as a service if you don't have another place to get the help and support that you need. It's betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung, and we only recommend services that we trust. And then number five tactic to put a narcissist in their place. This is the best one, because this cuts off their supply source completely. And that is create an exit plan and then stick to it, but do not let them know what it is. You got to keep it secret. You know, you're creating your stash of cash. You're figuring out where it is that you're going to go, what it is that you're going to do, what your leverage is going to be. You're creating invisible fence with that, you know, around them. This is my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, stay 2 steps ahead of them, focus on you, your case, your position, whatever it is, you being on the offensive. That's what you're going to do. And it works. It always works. I promise you that it does. All right. I know you feel like they're constantly winning. And you're like, how are they getting away with this all the time? I know. I hear it all the time. I'm a lawyer and I constantly hear, how are they getting away with this? They always win. The system is broken. I'm going to give you 6 tactics for putting a narcissist in their place right now. So don't move. And in fact, I'm going to give you 6, and the best one is at the end. All right. So don't move. All right. Number 1, you got to call them out when things aren't adding up. I know it's scary. It's definitely scary, but they've been conditioning you from the beginning, and you got to start saying, like, things are changing. They got to know that there's a new game in town. So just little by little, you got to start saying, hey, that's not adding up. Even if it's in an email, even if it's in a text, even if it's in an app, if you're using an app, you just got to say, hey, that's not adding up. And you got to start putting that in documentation. And remember, every text, every email, everything that you put in writing is a potential trial exhibit. That's not adding up. So number 1, call them out when things aren't adding up. Going through 6 tactics for putting a narcissist in their place. And this is something that you want to start doing. So number 2 is, remember, you don't want to give them narcissistic supply, right? So number 2 is you don't react to their bait. They're going to throw that bait out there and they're going to be like trying to reel you in, use things against you. Remember, when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's like getting arrested. Everything they say or do is going to be used against you. They're going to try to use your emotional reactions against you. They're going to go, oh, look, there's the crazy one. Look, they're going to be sitting over there like all cool and calm and collected, like they're the normal one, because they're trying to get you to do things. They're trying to bait you, trigger you. So do not react to the bait so hard. I know, but as soon as you do, they'll use it against you. So don't react. Number 3, the number 3 tactic for putting narcissists in their place is get them to lie and then flip it against them. You got to get them to lie. You got to bait them, right? So they're laying bait against you. Now you got to do the same thing back against them. And I have a whole video on what happens when you catch narcissists in lies. This is what you can do, right? This is, you want to nab them. So get them to lie and then flip it against them. I have a whole video on this. You want to nab them. I want you to put this in the comments right now. Nab them. All right. So get them to lie and flip it against them. This is tactics for putting narcissists in their place. You want to do this, right? So the next one is act like you don't care. You don't care. This is a step beyond not reacting to their bait. This is literally, you do not care what's going on with them. Like, okay, like, I don't even know your name. Who are you again? What? Do whatever you're going to do. Like, that is how you are. Okay. I don't even care what you're doing right now. That's the next one. Okay. 6 tactics for putting a narcissist in their place. They're trying to get supply from you. You are cutting off their food source, their oxygen. That is what supply is. That's number 4. Number 5 tactic for putting a narcissist in their place is creating invincible leverage, right? Strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. That is my SLAY methodology. That's what I teach. That's my program. You are creating invincible leverage. That is what you need to do. That is how you're going to put a narcissist in their place. part of getting them to lie and flipping it against them. That's why you need to go watch that other video, right? But you're going to create invincible leverage. I actually have a whole video on how to create leverage too. You can definitely check that out as well. All kinds of free stuff on this channel. That's why you need to subscribe and hit that notification bell. All right. And number six, Number six is be offensive and not defensive. Offensive. Never defend yourself. Okay. I have a whole video on that too. Don't defend yourself. Don't do that. Because as soon as you defend, you're like giving them, you're saying there's an issue. Don't defend, be offensive. So that's number six. And if you don't have my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet to get yourself started, get that now. Crushmydeal.com. Just go to crushmydeal.com and grab it. Go to Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung on Facebook as well. And make sure that you join that for free support. And you can also go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung if you don't have the therapist that you need and access to that. We have partnered with them and we do receive commissions, but it doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to the help and support that you need. So much support right here, right? So much support right here for you because today is the best day for you. Today's the best day for you. And I'm going to give you 11 tactics for always making sure that you never let those pesky narcissists into your life in the first place. So the first one is trust your intuition. You know, you're brimming with optimism. Maybe you're on your first date or you're going for coffee or whatever it is. And here comes this person, this charming person coming flying into your life. Your tranquility is there. But I don't know, your spidey sense, that hair on the back of your neck stands up, that gut, it knows, it knows. Your heart is actually 5 seconds ahead of your brain. Did you know that? And it's guiding you towards safety and serenity. That's why you can tell if somebody is behind you. You know, the Navy SEALs, they actually can sense when somebody is 25 feet behind them. Danger. Tune into that inner voice. If something feels off, listen. If your intuition is telling you something, you listen to it. That is your first line of defense against those toxic people, that narcissistic intrusion, if you will. That alarm is going off in your brain, in your heart. So if you're sitting at a networking event and you strike up a conversation with a seemingly charismatic individual and they've got this beautiful exterior, this charm going on, but there's something going on inside you, in the back of your mind, pay attention to that intuitive whisper that's going on inside of you. That is your soul's way of warning you to potential danger. Trust that intuition, and it's going to lead you to graceful disengage from that conversation and steer you away from that toxic connection and leave you open to the one that is meant for you. So the next one is set boundaries. Set boundaries and set them early. Boundaries are sacred. They're sacred lines in the sand, delineating what is acceptable and not acceptable in our interactions. They're bridges. They help you establish boundaries from the onset of a relationship. And they send clear messages that your well-being is not negotiable. It's saying to your sacred space, I'm honoring you. That's what it's saying. You're telling your sacred space, I'm honoring you. Consider a scenario where a new acquaintance is probing into your personal life with intrusive questions. And instead of passively acquiescing, assert your boundaries firmly but respectfully. Say, I appreciate your interest, but certain aspects of my life are private. And if they say, oh, well, this is us sharing. We need to get to know each other. If they start pushing you, then that's a red flag. Okay. That's something that you don't share. Just say, this approach is not working for me. Establish a precedent for respectful communication and safeguard your emotional sanctuary. Next one is screen your circle. Screen your circle. Your inner circle is sacred. It's a sacred sanctuary reserved only for those who get to be there, who uplift you, who inspire you. Go through due diligence every once in a while. Do some spring cleaning every once in a while and welcome only new individuals into your sphere of influence who get to be there. Maybe do clean some dust bunnies out that need to go out every once in a while, right? Defend your light with your life and observe their actions, discern their intentions, and prioritize quality over quantity. For sure. If you encounter a new romantic interest who showers you with compliments, showers you with adoration, if their affection seems flattering, pay attention to their behavior beyond the surface level. Are they consistent in their actions? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they respect your autonomy? Or are they masquerading as an ally? I mean, I've seen people come and go in my life quite a bit. If somebody's just pretending to be your friend just to get to the next level, then that's not somebody you need to be friends with. And I've seen that happen a lot in this particular space. Let me tell you, look at your guiding compass, know who you are, educate yourself. That's the next one. Knowledge is power. And use this as a shield against toxic people. Knowledge is power. The more you do this sort of thing, the more you read books like Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, watch these videos. Have you subscribed here? Have you hit that notification bell? Make sure that you join groups like our Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. That'll help you too. It'll help you deflect manipulative tactics. Attend workshops. I've got a free workshop for you. Come to icanslay.com and join me on my free workshop. That will help you not to be a passive observer. Listen to the red flags. Watch for the red flags. Look for the subtle cues. Pay attention. A lot of times what happens is we defend against the red flags. Well, they had a bad childhood. Well, they had a bad week. I mean, when that happens, just stop yourself. Don't push away those red flags. Like that they're belittling your accomplishments, or that they didn't show up when they were supposed to, or that they borrowed money and they didn't pay it back, or they're gaslighting you. All of those things because they're so good looking, or because they paid a lot of money for you to do this thing. Proceed with caution. Prioritize you and self-preservation over other things that won't matter as much, which leads me to the next one, which is prioritize self-care. Self-love is your armor. Down the road, those things will not matter. You're going to save yourself a whole lot of headache and heartache. Nurture your mind, your body, your soul. Reinforce your intrinsic self-worth. Immerse yourself in a self-care ritual. Do whatever you need to do to have serenity, yoga, ice baths, be with people, nature, whatever you need to do to remember who you are. Journal, breathing exercises, practice assertive communication is the next one. Your voice is a weapon of liberation, an instrument of clarity and empowerment, a means of asserting your needs, expressing your boundaries. It's okay to say, this approach isn't working for me. What do you mean by that? Something like that. And not in a disrespectful way, not in an angry way, more like curiosity. I would say use curiosity instead of anger. Reclaim your agency in interpersonal interactions. If you find yourself in a professional setting where you feel like a colleague is undermining you or monopolizing credit for your achievements, stand up for yourself. There's a way that you can say respectfully, this is not something to be shared. You can assert yourself during meetings. You can assert yourself and advocate for equitable recognition. Establish yourself as a force to be reckoned with. Next one is surround yourself with support. As I mentioned earlier, joining groups, but you might need to get therapy. Get the help that you need through other channels as well, whether it's your pastor or your rabbi or your friends, whoever it is that you need to go to, get the help you need. If you are facing a difficult time in your life alone, it's going to be so much worse. And the next one is trust your worth. Your worth is not something that's changeable. You are inherently worthy, and people may have told you differently, but that's not it. When you were born as a baby, you knew that you were whole. You knew that you were complete. The world started getting to you that you thought started to think that you weren't. Okay? You know that you are whole. And the next one is starting to cultivate discernment, starting to realize who's for you, who's not in a much faster way, and having integrity around that. The last one is embracing your imperfections, realizing that you're not going to be perfect. And that's a beautiful thing. Nobody is perfect. We are all human. And that is part of being authentic. And that is part of being a flawed individual. And that's what connects us. And that's what makes us vulnerable. And that's what makes us loving. And we are all something to be accepted. And we all have our own idiosyncrasies. And we all have our own identity. That's part of our journey. Embrace you for being you.
Now, if you're dealing with a narcissist, which I'm sure you probably are, or you wouldn't be watching this video, then you know what it's like, and almost nothing you think could possibly shock you about them because they're just heinous and awful to deal with. But there are some things that will absolutely shock you about narcissists. So hang on and let's get started. So the famous author Gore Vidal actually once was quoted as saying, "You can always spot the narcissist in the room. It's the person who's better looking than you." He was joking, of course, but the best jokes always have, that grain of truth in it. So the narcissist is the person that wants you to believe and wants to convince you that they're better than you in every way and that you are somehow less worthy than they are, have less value than they do, because that's what they really want you to believe. But the first thing I want you to know is the first shocking fact about narcissists, and that is how many of them that there are. So I'm going to go through some facts with you that I think are pretty shocking. One is that approximately 6% of the population has actually been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And so, if there are 360 million people in this country, and 6% of them have been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, that's 19,500,000 people. And if each one of those people just narcissistically abuses 5 people in their lifetimes, that's close to 100 million people. So just think about that. And if you apply that same formula to the population of the world, which is 7.5 billion, are you ready for this? 6% of 7.5 billion is 450 million people, okay, that have this narcissistic personality disorder. And if you actually overlay the number of people that lack a conscience or are actually sociopathic as well, then you are up to 697 million people who lack empathy or without a conscience or have narcissistic personality disorder. And if each one of those people just emotionally abuses 5 people in their lifetime, which is probably a low number, then you're actually talking about the potential damage of over 3.4 billion people. Yes, this is the secret global pandemic. And I just want to give a shout out to my friend Bree Bonche, who is the licensed clinical social worker and the designer, host, of Narcissistic Abuse Support Day, which takes place on June 1st of each year or somewhere around there. And I will actually drop a link below if you are interested in signing up for that free webinar that she hosts every year. I will be taking part in that this year. So, and that's from Brie Bonchet. So that's fact number one that I think is absolutely shocking. The next thing that I find absolutely shocking about a narcissist is that it has nothing to do with genetics. It has, well, very little to do with genetics, is what they think. It has everything to do with childhood. And the other shocking fact about their childhood is it doesn't necessarily come from trauma. Yes, it can be from having a traumatic event or things happen in their childhood, but it can also be from having parents who were actually overindulgent with them and gave into them too much or told them how amazing they were in every way. But here's the really key thing about that is that they were praised constantly for the things that they did externally, and they weren't given any sense of feeling valuable on the internal. And that's the thing about narcissists is they have no internal sense of value. And so if they were raised in an environment where everything was about the external, how did you look, what kind of grades did you get, then they might have been ended up being raised with this feeling of a lack of internal sense of value. And so that I think is actually pretty shocking as well. The other little thing about their childhood is that all children are sort of narcissists, as well as especially teens. And so, you know, it's part of the development of the human brain and the human emotions to, you know, start to develop a sense of yourself by being kind of narcissistic and feeling that the world revolves around you. And it's very common for 2-year-olds to think that, or even 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds. So the thing about narcissism is that while it starts in childhood like that, it actually can't be diagnosed until one becomes an adult. And number three, the shocking thing about narcissism is that it's actually not necessarily an unhealthy thing. Just like a lot of other things with personality types, and narcissism is a personality type, it's actually a trait. Unlike some other mental disorders, the thing with narcissism is that we all kind of have an element of narcissism in us. We actually all want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. And we actually all want to be validated by people. And so there's a continuum of narcissism that's partially healthy. It's when it gets into the illusions of grandeur and when you're actually feeling no sense of empathy for another human being, and you devalue, degrade, and discard other human beings to the point of emotional abuse that you're actually inflicting on these other human beings. That's when that level of narcissism has risen to a level of being unhealthy. It becomes unhealthy or pathological in the sense that they start to believe that their own pain, their feelings are actually more important than others. And they give no credence or credibility or validation to others for their feelings or for their contributions or their achievements. That's when it's pathological, and that's when it becomes unhealthy. So, and that's where you start to look at this scale of what a narcissist actually is. And I have a video on Am I Married to a Narcissist? And I actually go through the seven different personality traits that psychiatrists look at when they are actually trying to determine whether or not somebody is a narcissist or not. And I will drop a link to that video below. You're going to want to check that out. And if you are a victim of a narcissist and you are so ready for change in your life, give me an I'm ready in the comments right now. The fourth most shocking thing about narcissists is one of the things that I actually found the most shocking when I really started to learn about narcissists, because I had to deal with them so much in my law practice. And that is, they're actually the most scared, most insecure, most fragile personality on earth. You are actually so much stronger than they are. You're the stronger one. You're the more secure one. They know that. And that's why they were attracted to you in the first place. Because remember, there's this symbiotic relationship between narcissists and empaths. And I talk more about that in my video on the covert passive aggressive narcissist. So you're going to want to check that out. And I will drop a link to that below as well. But just remember that you are probably an empath because that's what narcissists are mostly attracted to. They want the person who has the qualities that they don't necessarily have. And they glom onto you and they just kind of drain the life out of you. But that's what's happening in these relationships. Underneath it all, there's this fragile little personality, an empty shell that feels no sense of value. So they attach themselves to people and people that they think are going to help them feel more valuable. And so they need an endless amount of supply. And they try to get that from that person. They're tremendously insecure. They're tremendously afraid of being rejected or abandoned. And so they act in this heinous way, all to protect their fragile little egos. I recently had a conversation with Dr. Ramani, and as many of my regular viewers know, that I did a lot of series with her. And one of the things that she said that really struck me is that she said that the narcissist is actually a very simple personality to understand. They're not like normal people like you and I, where we are actually pretty complicated, and there are a lot of different things that motivate us and a lot of different things that cause us to do the things that we do, or want the things that we want. Narcissists are actually pretty simple. They're just wanting to try to get as much value from everything out in the world as they possibly can because they feel so empty inside. It's all about survival for them. So that's the shocking fact um, that I think is actually the most shocking. And that is that they are the most fragile, scared little creatures on the planet. And number 5, this is the best one, and this is where I come in, and that is that they can be motivated. They can be motivated to behave in certain ways. And that, in my world, I call that motivation leverage or strategy. And if you create enough leverage and you create a strong enough strategy and you're anticipating what the narcissist is going to do and focusing on you in your case, which is my slay strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you, then you will be able to get them to behave the way you want them to. They're basically 2-year-olds in adult bodies, and you're motivating the 2-year-old to stop having a tantrum. So when 2-year-olds have tantrums, they fall on the floor, they scream, they yell, and they're really just testing. They're testing the parents to see how much they need to scream and yell in order to get what they want. And narcissists do the same thing. They're testing you, they're testing your boundaries, they're testing you constantly. And so when the 2-year-old screams and yells and the parents give in and give the kid the lollipop, then the 2-year-old goes, aha, so all I need to do is scream and yell and fall on the floor and cause a big scene, and they will give in. So next time, I just need to scream louder, scream longer, and cause more of a scene, and they will eventually give in. So I'll just keep on doing this until they eventually give in. And that's what narcissists are doing. And so you have to kind of implement what we call a behavior modification system for narcissists and go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to actually motivate you into behaving the way I want you to behave. Here's the little kind of thing about narcissists that I also think is sort of maybe shocking fact number 6, and that is that they do know what normal behavior looks like because they play the part. they may not be able to feel any empathy for you, and they may not be able to give you emotionally what you want, and they may be act absolutely awful and emotionally abusive, but they do know what good behavior looks like. That's how they were able to love bomb you in the first place, in the first phase of the narcissistic relationship. Remember, the narcissistic relationship is love bomb, devalue, discard. And they do sort of vacillate back and forth between all of those different um, stages of the relationship. But just remember that they do know what they are supposed to do. So you can actually create enough leverage and enough motivation to squeeze them into behaving the way you want them to. And that, to me, is a positive, shocking fact about a narcissist.
Shopify helps millions sell billions around the world through their digital courses, through their digital products at the touch of a button on their smartphones, on social media, however they want, including me at shop.rebeccazung.com. You can access your store from all over the world, just a touch of a button from your smartphones. Start accepting payments. Everything you need to sell online, manage orders, and develop relationships in one place and look fabulous doing it. Shopify is the commerce platform that is revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide, including my own, at shop.rebeccazung.com. So right now, what you need to do is sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/bestlife, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/bestlife to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bestlife.